We are live, back with another edition of your Wildest Fantasy Football Show, a Thursday edition of your Wildest Fantasy Football Show. Got some games tonight, got a game tonight between the Green Bay Packers and the Arizona Cardinals, undefeated Arizona Cardinals.
7-0.
Exactly. The 0 losses, undefeated. It all connects.
I'll say Kyler Murray leading them strong.
He is.
I mean, my QB. Just want to put it there. He's doing it for me. He dedicates the games to me. He might not say it out loud, but I know.
He says it to you.
Yeah, that's all that matters,
Is it like a verbal communication thing, or is it just like a mental
like too much detail? But it's kind of cute.
Fair enough. Cody, I have a question for you. Just unrelated to the.
Normally have
a mayo guy?
Am I a mayo guy?
Yeah.
Not normally. If I'm having tuna fish, put a little mayonnaise in there. But can't say I'm a big mayo guy for making a sandwich though.
Okay. On to the show. First, before we get into the game tonight, we should probably start with injuries. And today, you were taking the helm on that. And I'm very excited for this.
Yeah, someone has to do a good job, so we had to change pace here. I'll just start with the Thursday night game. Marquez Valdes-Scantling is a game-time decision. They said that so far. Definitely fucked the name up a little bit. But he's a game-time decision. They said he's coming off IR. Devonte Adams is out. He had the little COVID bug. And Alan Lazard was also placed on the COVID reserve list. So they without pass catchers this game. DeAndre Hopkins is questionable. I believe it is his hammy, I think.
They said he is, just a little added to that.
He's expected to play, but just, tamper expectations, injury. CMC still out. Terrence Marshall is a little banged up. Parker, shoulder and hammy, expected to play, but could hurt him. Dawson Knox had hand surgery, so he's going to be out. On the Niners, Curtis Samuel missed practice. On the Bears, Robinson ankle was limited. For Steelers, Big Ben banged up. Claypool hammy was limited. Browns, just about everyone was a little banged up. Nick Chubb with the calf, Baker with the shoulder, Odell with the shoulder, and Jarvis with the knee. Is feeling better, so Jarvis should play. Eagles, Devonte Smith, so he was out of practice. Swift for the Lions has a groin. He was limited. I don't know how that's going to carry into the game. Titans, Julio with his hammy still. Colts, Hines limited. Taylor, ribs. Hilton potentially is playing. A lot of injuries on the Colts. Bengals, Chris Evans, not Captain America. Hammy, he was out of practice. For the Jets, Coleman did not practice because of his hammy. Texans, Tyrod Taylor is coming back with some good news. Or he is potentially coming back this week for this game, which could be good news for them. Seahawks, Collins was limited. For Washington, Scary Terry's hamstring. Gibson's a maybe. Ricky Seals-Jones is also their tight end. He has a quadricep injury. He was limited at practice, so interesting to see how they would do. Broncos, good news. Jerry Jeudy is back, potentially. I believe he is going to play, but coming back from the IR. Not sure how he'll do, but Jerry Jeudy. Tampa Bay, Antonio Brown's still out, but Gronk could potentially be coming back from his rib injury. For New Orleans, Michael Thomas is coming back potentially from IR. It looks like he is going to play. Taysom Hill had a concussion. He didn't practice on Wednesday. Jordan Humphrey is out. He was added to the COVID list, so I'm not sure how that'll.
If you have your shares of Jordan Humphrey.
Well, I'm just saying, COVID, it's a big thing. It could spread quick.
It's a very big thing.
Right. So that's why I had to add him, just because, you never know if he was in contact with Jameis, because quarterback throws receiver ball, receiver catches ball, ball touches quarterback, quarterback touches face. Big circle of life thing here. That's the only reason I have an awesome last name. Good news for Dallas. Gallup is back, so that is a good news for them as far as injuries go. Vikings, D.B. Westbrook practice. Giants, Ingram was a non-participant. And Chiefs, I didn't have anything else.
Oh boy, I didn't mean for that to come up yet, but it did. First thing before we get into that, I want to ask you: do you think that Devonte Smith's headache will affect him during the game?
I mean, maybe. I mean, he could have, could be a concussion. Don't want to list as that. Could be COVID. Could just
Migraine. We all know the migraines.
be a migraine. You never really know. Practice today though, but doesn't look like it was anything serious. But we just got that news. But could be. You never know. It's a headache. Not sure what it was though.
Fair enough. Head injury is always scary.
All right.
Little breaking news out of Houston or New Orleans, depending on how you want to look at it. Houston Texans are trading running back Mark Ingram to the New Orleans Saints.
Right.
This has a little bit of a fantasy impact to it, I would say. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't say as much in New Orleans other than Mark Ingram might be the handcuff now to an Alvin Kamara, but probably more in Houston if you are looking at maybe a end-of-bench addition to one of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think David Johnson actually bumps up a little bit from this news. I mean, their other back is Philip Lindsay, who was good years past. But I think it always helps when you have the least amount of people in a backfield as possible. So I think David Johnson can benefit from this a little bit. And yeah, Mark Ingram now becomes the handcuff to Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, I think definitely David Johnson is the primary guy that we expect to see benefit from this. Now, we didn't see much out of the Texans' backfield all season long, so I'm not sure I would have major expectations, but definitely worth an add if you just have a bench spot open or something. Texans, week 7 snap count. David Johnson had 54% of the snaps, Ingram 38%, and
Right.
Lindsey and Burkhead both had 7. So it seems like David Johnson is the clear top dog, at least to start here. I think Philip Lindsay's a really good player, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him work in more often. But David Johnson's the one you're going to invest in right now if you are going to invest in anyone in this backfield.
Right. I mean, David Johnson has 189 total snaps. The next closest would be Philip Lindsay with 79. Obviously Mark Ingram before that had 164. So I really think Philip Lindsay just being there kind of forced him a little bit to just be we're just going to start washing these guys through, get a play in, get a couple plays in, come out, which is good for real football. If you're on a good team, it's good for real football to give your guys some rest. For fantasy, it's always nice to just have one or two people in the backfield and kind of keep that.
Agreed. I want to add a couple more injuries to the list. One was brought up in the chat. Is Debo hasn't practiced this week. He has a calf strain.
Debo Samuel.
Did we? Well, then.
Yeah.
That was misleading.
I mean,
Kenny's quickly fallen down my list of favorite listeners.
I mean, I did say that for the 49ers, Samuel missed practice. So, I mean, thank you.
I apologize.
It's okay. I'll say it 3 times, I guess. Debo missed practice. Debo missed practice. Debo missed practice. But
With calf strain. He hasn't practiced yet this week. Something to monitor going forward. Obviously, a reason that I say Kenny has fallen down my power rankings of listeners is the big thing. He ruined the Duke Johnson news. He announced it before I could announce it on the show, which made me go ballistic on him, like use words that I can't use on this show. I was like, go effing F yourself, you effing effer. Like a lot of efforts around.
Fairness, you Frank Red Hot fanatic, for all you people who couldn't pick up between the lines there.
I don't think you need to. I think what you said is hurtful enough.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't fix a furnace, like, what can you do?
Agreed. Another injury I think you might have mentioned, but just more information on it. Antonio Brown is dealing with a sprain around his heel.
Right, I just said.
They said he could be back after the bye, or it could be a long time, was the quote. So pretty up in the air there. But also, if you are in a good spot right now and you have some bench pieces, you want to go out and get Antonio Brown and try to stash him and take a flyer on him, take a risk. The price for him goes way down for a guy that potentially could be a top pass catcher in this Bucs offense when he comes back. It's risky, but the price is certainly going to be as low as ever right now.
Right. I think Antonio Brown, just from a real football perspective, if you are the Tampa Bay Bucs, you are not short on weapons. Like, you have an insane amount of weapons on your team already. He's dealing with a tricky ankle sprain in his heel. So, like, if you try to rush that, it could get a lot more serious a lot quicker. And, like, you would lose Antonio Brown for the rest of the season guaranteed. They're playing New Orleans. New Orleans is kind of weak against the pass and good against the run, which feeds straight into the Bucs anyway. So I think they're fine to sit him, because then they get a bye, and then it's Washington and the Giants. Like, you can either sit him for those games and just like secure, like give him a month off to recuperate or whatever. But yeah, for fantasy news, it's a good buy. Especially if he's missing time and the team that he's on needs a guy now to perform. Definitely a buy low guy coming back second half of the season for playoffs for us, regular season for them.
Yeah, so if you're in a really good spot, if you're undefeated, 6-1, 5-2, like, I think that's probably a point where you're like, okay, Antonio Brown for maybe even like a Sterling Shepard if he's going to be healthy, or someone along those lines. I don't think it has to be someone that great, or a starting option that you're giving up.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on into the game tonight. Green Bay, Arizona. Arizona, big favorites, as you mentioned. Green Bay has two of their top wide receivers out. We had a lot of talk earlier in the week about, obviously, Devonte Adams missing,
right,
Allen Lazard maybe being an option, and then he goes on the COVID list as well. I think the biggest question fantasy-wise from this game is who to trust at wide receiver for the Packers, because there's going to be some production. It's Aaron Rodgers still. They're going to toss the ball around. But are you trusting any of these other wide receivers in the mix in Green Bay?
I am. We don't normally talk about defensive injuries on this show because no one cares about defenses for fantasy purposes. We only care about the people catching balls and stuff. But J.J. Watt is out for season now, got a shoulder surgery. J.J. Watt, old, yes, but still a menace, big part for their defense in general. So I think like their pass rush obviously diminishes and their run stopping diminishes. So
they do get Chandler Jones back though.
Right, but I don't know. Again, you're missing people on your defense. You're gonna have to like plug and play it's a short week for them. They're playing on Thursday. So I think Randall Cobb is the guy I like the most. Just because, like, week 5 he put up 24 points for you basically with those 2 touchdowns. I really think like he has a chance to do it again. He has been extremely bust this year. 4, 5, 0, 23.95 didn't play, and then 5. So like he's risky, but I like him more than MVS. But he's coming to Arizona. He is making the plane, so that's why I think he will play. But I think Randall Cobb being like the healthiest option out there, and also like we saw it once this year, maybe we see it again, especially with 2 pass catchers out, MVS coming back from injury, and I don't know. I could see it being his day for sure.
Yeah, I am going to be a little more cautious here just because I think if it was last week, I would be with you. But being as there's not as many buys this week, it's not as crazy. I think I'm a little bit more cautious
Okay.
on the Cobb and MVS train.
Right.
I could see this being like for Aaron Jones the day that Kamara had on Monday night, where he gets like 10 catches. I think a big strategy, as you mentioned, with J.J. Watt out, I think Chandler Jones increases the pass rush, but I'm not sure that he's still playing on the outside more, not in that 3-4 defensive line. So I think that opens up the run for Green Bay a little bit and the opportunity to keep Kyler Murray off the field and keep that explosive offense off the field by running the ball. And I can see this being a little bit more controlling the game, controlling the clock, and using that run game for Green Bay. And I could see their running back catching a lot of balls. I could see Rob Tonyan catching a lot of balls. I could see Cobb and MVS catching some, and I could even see them catching a lot, but I don't know which it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like you should have better options. If you don't, I don't blame you for starting a Randall Cobb. I think he probably is the safest. I was going back and forth on these guys. I do think Valdez-Scantling is an interesting one because unlike Cobb, he only needs really just like one bomb to get it, but it's risky.
MVS week 1, he went 3 for 8, 17 yards, and week 2 against Detroit, which is a notoriously just junky team, he went 0 for 4 in catching the ball. So, and then week 3 against San Fran, he went 3 for 4, 59 yards and a touchdown. I guess that was just why I kind of stayed away from him. Just the fact 6 out of 16 balls thrown his way, and he played Detroit. And I think Randall Cobb like getting a lot less touches for sure so far this season and a lot less looks. But Randall Cobb being there all year, being healthy, I think that's what kind of like pushed it over the top for me. They both have talent for sure. Randall Cobb also has 5 looks in the red zone so far. Granted, he's played 3 more games, but MVS only has 2 in the 3 games he played. So even if they played the same, Cobb would hypothetically outbeat him by 1 still. So that's why I kind of like Randall Cobb a little bit more than MVS.
He's definitely more, I think, safer option too.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to get, I think, more looks just in the way that he's used. We talk about the way people are used a lot on this show as far as is he a deep threat, which MVS is, or is he kind of that slot guy going to rack up a lot of catches, a little bit less yards per catch? I think that's what Randall Cobb is. But I wouldn't be surprised if Randall Cobb breaks one or something like that, and we've seen that connection for a while now. So if you want to start Randall Cobb in your flex, obviously don't start him literally in your flex because you never know what's going to happen. Start people over the weekend just in case somebody gets hurt, and you can replace your flex with a running back or wide receiver or tight end or whatever, rather than having Cobb locked into your flex. And then if one of your wide receivers gets hurt, you can only start a wide receiver. That's besides the point.
Right.
But expecting flex numbers for Cobb, if you want to do that, I think that's fine. I just think there has to be safer options out there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can argue Randall Cobb is like the safest option. But I'm just saying if there is a week that he is going to perform, it's a Thursday night game against an undefeated team who is middle of the road against pass catchers this year with Devonte Adams and Allen Lazard out and MVS coming off of injury. I think that's like the point I was arguing is just like if there is a game he's going to just explode for, it is going to be tonight.
I agree. Do you have anything from the Cardinals side?
I said could be an Edmonds rebound game, just because, I mean, Green Bay's a little bit tougher on the pass than they are on the run so far this year, and I see the Cardinals going. If they get the ball first, I see them being up first and then just securing the game basically from jump here. I think that their offense, like even minus DeAndre Hopkins, like if he's not 100%, they have 3 better than average pass catchers on the outside. They have Zach Ertz, like they just have options out there. So I think the pressure, even if Nuke isn't 100%, is just there. And I think Chase Edmonds, coming off of just a 10-point week against Houston where people were like, oh, it's Houston, they should just kill him. I think he kind of got bumped down a little bit. And I think like he's in for a nice rebound.
I think one of the interesting storylines out of Arizona is just the amount of work that we're seeing from a guy like James Conner, which we did not expect coming into the year. He's getting a lot more work and eating into Edmonds, a lot more than I think a lot of people expected. Edmonds still running back 19 on the year. So, but obviously you look at his numbers more and look at his week to week, and you see most of that production came in the first 4 weeks. He's kind of been dwindling off a little bit. He still had a really good game last week. His efficiency numbers have still been unreal. He's running for 5.8 yards a carry. Though we know he's a talented player, it's just interesting to see how Conner is eating into that, especially when it comes to touchdowns, obviously.
Right.
Edmonds has yet to score a touchdown this year. I'm pretty sure Conner has at least 6.
Conner has 6 touchdowns so far on the year. Conner seems to be, what he is. Like he seems to be a power back compared to Chase Edmonds. I think they're using him as such. Chase Edmonds he only has 70 more snaps on the year, I think, maybe 80 if I did my math wrong. 82 more snaps on the year than Conner, which isn't a lot. It is kind of a split backfield back there. But Chase Edmonds gets no less than 3 looks through the air a game. 4, 5, 4, 3. Those are average around 4 to 5 targets a game. That's 4 or 5 easy points for your fantasy team, plus whatever he gets you, after he catches it or while he catches it and after the catch anyway. So I think that's why I like him, just because he is the passing option there. 33 targets on the year. It's, he actually has more targets than Rondale Moore. So, it is an interesting little interesting thing, but James Conner has 6 more, inside the 20, inside the red zone looks than Edmonds. So I think like Edmonds could get you more yards and potentially more points. I think like Green Bay might be able to keep him out of the end zone a couple of times, but I think Chase Edmonds just puts up some nice numbers this game for you.
Interesting. I think it's going to be a lot closer game.
Yeah,
people
for sure
are expecting. I'm expecting like a 28-20 finish. I don't want to throw the exact number out there, but I think I just did.
I think you did.
That's like, and I could see Green Bay winning. I don't think either team pulls away crazy in this one. But yeah, I think it's going to be a lot closer than people expect.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Moving on to the weekend games. First one is Cincinnati at the Jets. Just get the Jets talk out of the way as soon as possible. I think that's probably the best strategy always. My one thing I noticed in this game, obviously, Zach Wilson, another injury. He has a sprained PCL, will be out 2 to 4 weeks.
Right.
The Jets just traded for an elite quarterback, but he is not ready yet. So they are going with Mike White once again. Mike White played last week after Wilson went down. Was 13 of 30, or in 13 of his 32 passes, so 40% of his passes, he targeted the running backs 40% of the time. Cincinnati's pretty good against the run, but I think this could be a big Carter game, not necessarily because he's going to run too efficiently, but just because he had 8 targets last time. I think that is very much in the realm of possibility again this week.
He could. All depends on how the Mike White is going to actually do for them. I mean, we see it a lot when a quarterback comes in. The team will just give you some easy throws to the running back, some short yardage plays just to try to like get your confidence up a little bit, like get you acclimated, so to speak, to football on the highest level. But yeah, I'm not super high on anyone this week. Carter would be the only guy I would consider starting, and that's just because he has a chance to run it a couple of times and then catch, like 7 or 8 balls out the backfield probably.
I think Carter's like a starter for probably like a decent amount of teams. Like I would say like at least 50% of teams in the leagues.
I mean, he's rostered in 68, starting in 24. So he's not a must start in my opinion. I don't think you like ever look at the Jets organization and say, this is the guy who I want to start week in, week out. But Michael Carter, I mean, they had a bye week, so in like the past 4 weeks, had the 3 10+ point games in PPR. That's helpful for a running back. I mean, but all the running backs are in this week because we're only losing, the Raiders and Baltimore. So Baltimore doesn't have a starting caliber running back for fantasy teams, and the Raiders kind of have 2, I guess, depending, just because Josh Jacobs is always injured. But I don't think if Michael Carter wasn't playing for you already, I don't think you have to start him this game.
I got 2 names for you.
Okay.
A running back. Would you rather start Alex Collins or Michael Carter? I would take Michael Carter.
Collins, I think I got to go Collins just because they're playing Jacksonville. I mean, Collins has that injury concern just because he was limited with the groin, so I could limit his mobility a little bit. But they're playing Jacksonville. Like, you have to love that. You have to love the starting running back on a team playing Jacksonville more than the starting running back on the Jets, basically versus any team. to be honest.
I think it's a conversation. In full point PPR, I would go Carter just because the passing opportunity, and with Rashad Penny in the mix, I think that they want to get him involved. I guess we can talk more about that when we talk about Seattle, though. Daryl Williams or Michael Carter?
That is tough. Wait, Daryl Williams
Yes.
for Kansas City?
Yep.
I gotta go Kansas City. I mean, starting running back on a team that like has struggled so far, but like they're going to be fine season long. They're playing the Giants. Like,
I think, yeah. I mean, I agree with you here.
Yeah.
I think just the chance at the touchdown is much better for Daryl Williams.
for me, it's not a close conversation for either of those guys. I think you start both of them, especially since Versace has yet to catch a pass or even had one thrown his way. Granted, he's only played 2 games this year. But
Who does?
Penny from the Seahawks has no targets this year.
I mean, he's only played 1 game where he's had, I would say, like, good opportunity.
I mean,
Not had Chris Carson there.
right. In Indy, he got 2 runs for 8 yards, so good running numbers, but then no looks. But again, Chris Carson was there. But then last week against New Orleans, Chris Carson was out, I believe, right? Last week.
Mm-hmm.
He got 6 run plays, 9 yards, and then no looks in the pass game whatsoever. So I'm a lot less worried about him than you are, for sure. That's why I think Alex Collins and Darrell Williams both are starters over Michael Carter.
Fair enough. I would say, and just like to recap, I would say Daryl Williams is, I do not say Alex Collins. I think it's close with both. But that's just what I would say for that. Do you have anything on Cincy? I feel like Cincy might be pretty self-explanatory at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I said it's going to be a great mix-in game. Just because they are going to be up so fast and so quick against this Jets team. It's going to be hysterical to watch. Like 3 drives, you're going to be like, oh, they passed the ball. And then for the next, 6 or 7, you're just going to be like, oh, Joe Mixon gets the ball again. Oh, Samaje Perine gets the ball again. Oh, Joe Mixon again. I just see it being that sort of day. Jets are dead last against the run this year. They're pretty good against the pass as far as fantasy points allowed. They're 3rd to their opponent. So that's why I love Joe Mixon.
Quickly, do you think this game or after this game is a sell high opportunity for Joe Mixon? Because that's kind of what I'm looking at this as. After the Jets, he has Cleveland, then he has his bye. He has the Raiders, who have actually been decent against the run so far, Pittsburgh, and then in the playoffs has Denver, Baltimore, and then Kansas City. Kansas City obviously doesn't worry you a ton, but Denver and Baltimore both been decent against the run so far this year.
A little bit, but not I'm not. It's Joe Mixon on a very explosive offense now. I didn't think I'd say it about the Bengals, but the fact that teams are going to have to worry about Jamar Chase is it's a real thing. Jamar Chase has broke, I think, every rookie record so far for a wide receiver.
On pace, at least, yeah.
He used to do it. I know through 7 games, I think he has broken most of all. He's just unreal, so I think it just helps Joe Mixon. Joe Burrow kind of coming into it as a quarterback. He hasn't looked terrible here. Obviously, for fantasy, he's the 9th quarterback for fantasy. But even in real, watching the games, he looks more centered back there. He looks a lot better than he has last year, especially.
I think this is a good opportunity to get rid of. I think we've talked about Joe Mixon, and I liked Joe Mixon coming into the year. I've talked about him. He was on my team in our league until 2 days ago.
Right.
And he's on my team in another league. I just think Joe Mixon is kind of capped in his value as a high-end RB2 because of the limitations in the passing game. I think that's been a little bit more clear. Like, he can run for a ton of yards, but I don't think he's necessarily has the upside of some of these guys that even catch the ball a little bit, like a guy that I traded him for in Jonathan Taylor, or these running back ones, even the ones that are struggling, like Aaron Jones right now. So I think after this game, depending on how Aaron Jones does tonight, we all expect him to do pretty well, seeing as they're missing a lot of people. But if you can turn Joe Mixon and something into Aaron Jones or something like that and just leap into that RB1 consideration for him coming off of a game against a good game, we presume, against the Jets, I think that would be very smart.
Yeah. I don't know. It's tough to like say trade away Joe Mixon. But I mean, if you think Jonathan Taylor, who has 5 more targets in the past game, is a better option, then I think you go for it. You're going for Taylor. But yeah.
But there's been more consistency from Taylor too, though, right? Like, I get that he does have 3 weeks with 1 reception.
I mean, he went 7 targets, 1, 3, 4, 2, 3 for Jonathan Taylor. So I mean, like,
we have
kind of
2 weeks from Mixon where he has more than 1 target or more than 1 catch. Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, he went 4, 2, 1, 2, 1, 6, 0. He was banged up for a game or 2, right? I mean, P. Ryan.
Yeah, but before that, he wasn't catching anything. And we were starting to see P. Ryan get involved on third downs, like to the point where we don't even see Mixon out there on third downs all the time, most of the time, I would say, watching that team. So, like, that is something that, again, not worries me because I know what Mixon is. Like, I think Mixon is a very good RB2, like one of the best RB2s you can have. But if you can get into that RB1 range, I think that is, and I just personally think Jonathan Taylor is a better player. He's a little bit more explosive. I just think I think both are very talented, but Jonathan Taylor also has the benefit of Colts O-line that's awesome. So I like that situation a little bit more. And like, not even that, like an Aaron Jones, guys in that conversation too. I mean, I guess there's not a lot, but if you can jump into that RB1 mix, I guess that's what I'm trying to say is I would try to take that move while you can, especially with all the tough matchups coming up.
I mean, hey, I'm with you. Jonathan Taylor does have an easy. Yeah, I mean, he's got Tennessee, the Jets, Jacksonville, but then he plays Buffalo, Tampa Bay, Houston, bye week, New England, Arizona for peak playoff time. It could be tough. Aaron Jones is playing Kansas City, Seahawks, Rams, bye week, Chicago, Baltimore, Cleveland, Minnesota. So again, both those guys have kind of tough playoff schedules. So if you're looking to trade for one of those two, none of them have an easy schedule. Some of them have an easier upcoming schedule, but then once you hit playoff time, they could potentially just be like, why did I trade for these people if they're only going to get me 10 points? I could have kept so-and-so.
Would you rather have – who do you trust more to overcome a tough schedule, Joe Mixon or Jonathan Taylor?
Joe Mixon. I think the fact that –
okay, I disagree with that.
and you got to take into account like a couple of different things here. Quarterback play. You are unrealistically high just because it's your team on Carson Wentz.
I don't know what you're talking.
Okay, well, I mean, I thought we were gonna have a conversation, but if we're not, then that's
well.
fine.
We did have a conversation. Carson Wentz is in the conversation.
Okay, Carson Wentz is not 100%. Correct.
How is he not 100%?
Well, his ankles are always in like a worry to give out on you.
I mean, he had the ankle sprain, but like he hasn't. I don't think he's on the injury report or anything, and he's hasn't had any hiccups since the injury.
And healthy Carson Wentz throws for 200 yards against Houston and then 150 against San Francisco. I just think
Tsunami and Houston, they were up by a zillion, so I don't think they needed to.
I mean, Tom threw up. What did he throw for against Houston? No, sorry, he played Miami. He threw for 400.
So that's Tom Brady. We already said he's going for numbers. I think Colts are more in a position where they got to win.
I think the wide receiver play, so far at least, has definitely been more in favor of the Bengals. Yes, T.Y. Hilton is coming back eventually. He was supposed to come back 2 weeks ago. Didn't play last week. Could potentially come in this week, but we don't know for sure yet, which could help. But I think the wide receiver play is definitely better on the Bengals side of the football. But, and I mean, their defenses are what?
They're both good.
I mean, Bengals, better run defense, letting up 245 yards through the air. Indianapolis letting up 243 yards in the air and 111 yards on the ground. So similar, but Bengals defense is a little bit better, just if you're looking at it. So they're letting up 2 more pass yards and then 30 less.
Also, the Colts defense, though, I do want to say, I saw this the other day, pretty wild. They have a fumble recovery in every game so far this year.
I mean, awesome. Congratulations to the Colts.
I will say thank you on behalf of them, but that sounded facetious, and I don't really respect that tone.
I mean, I guess if you expect that to continue, then good job. Defense, is their defense undefeated? I don't
know if that's possible.
For them, I mean, Arizona's undefeated. That's kind of what I was hinting.
Well, I don't know. But is their defense undefeated? What does that mean?
That means they haven't lost a game yet. Is their defense undefeated? Is the team undefeated, Kondo?
Well, that doesn't mean a defense is the whole reason.
No, I'm just saying. I mean, Arizona has 2, 4, 6, 8.
Who do we appreciate?
I mean, they have 8.
Cardinals defense, apparently.
They have 8 fumble recoveries.
I think you're just playing devil's advocate because before the show, you said that you liked my trade.
I said I liked your side of the trade. I do not like the Joe Mixon. I don't like who you gave. I don't like who the other person chose to accept.
I gave him more, I think.
I don't know.
I'm a little perplexed, but we got to move on. Tennessee, Indy, we kind of talked about Jonathan Taylor. Cody hates him. I love him. I love him at least for this 3-game stretch, like you mentioned. He has a really good stretch of the season now, and I think he could be a guy if you're looking to jump into that top ranks. I mean, he is the RB2 right now. If you're looking to jump and get in full point, he's 3. In half point, he is 2.
Talk full point on the show, Kondo. We switched over.
Okay.
I'll forgive you.
He's a top running back right now, but if you're looking to get into that Kamara, maybe Najee area, I think you might be able to flip him in the next couple of weeks for that, and I think that would probably be what I would recommend.
But would you though? Would you be able to realistically trade someone who will have a much easier end of the season and everyone knows just off of name value will finish above this guy at the end of the season?
If you look at Alvin Kamara, though, Alvin Kamara has Tampa Bay and Carolina in the playoffs. So, I got to look at Najee real quick.
Najee, Baltimore, Minnesota, Tennessee, Kansas City.
Najee has Tennessee and Kansas City, but he also has Cleveland in championship weekend. So like I think you can find a way to like
17's championship weekend?
yes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So you can kind of find a way, I think, to knock a lot of these guys around a bit.
Hmm.
But
I don't think it's as easy as, just for like the audience's sake, I don't think it's as easy as it might be in other leagues. That's the only reason I am trying to warn them from before they like get it in their head like, oh, I can trade Jonathan Taylor for Curry or for Alvin Kamara as soon as after this next game. Like you could in certain leagues, but I don't like it's
well,
not.
yeah, I'm not saying that it's going to happen. I think that's why I said it's a possibility. If he has a hot stretch here, I think you could do a Jonathan Taylor and a receiver for an Alvin Kamara, where I don't think you could do that for Joe Mixon.
So it depends on how these next couple games go, I guess. I don't know.
I suppose. I mean, we could say that for anything, but I think that Jonathan Taylor has some pretty high value right now. I think he's in a weird place. He's not in that top end running back one, but he's like right outside of there. So Jonathan Taylor's an interesting one. As far as this game goes, both teams are bottom 8 in fantasy points allowed to running backs in a good way. So they're like allowing the least to opposing running backs. Colts are allowing the third least. Titans are allowing the 8th least. Something's got to give here because both these running backs are very good. I think that's fair to say.
I don't think you compare Derrick Henry to Jonathan Taylor.
I don't think
you.
I'm saying that. I think they're both good though. Like they're both very good.
I mean, Derrick Henry is like he has 2 games this season where he has less than 100 rushing yards, and like now that he's like starting to catch the ball, I think like as we've talked earlier on the show, I think Derrick Henry, and you agree, is just a different breed of human being, and Indy is 3rd against the run, so that is like a little concerning, but it's Derrick Henry, and Derrick Henry is probably going to have like a couple stops in the backfield, but then he'll just run through all 8 of your defenders and get 10 yards. Whereas Jonathan Taylor, I think, has to use a little bit more like craftsmanship and showmanship kind of to finagle his way into like an 8-yard pickup. That's the only thing that kind of like worries me a little bit, and the fact he is a little banged up for the game. So
I think Jonathan Taylor, it's crazy to see what he's doing. I mean, as far as where is he? He's 3rd in rushing yards. And I saw he has like a little bit back to the Mixon conversation, but he has like 18 carries less than Mixon and has 40 more yards on the ground, which is wild. And that's not just him versus Mixon. I think that's just him versus everyone. He's averaging 5.5 yards per carry. He's super explosive for his size. And I agree, like nobody is in the conversation with Derrick Henry right now. I think Jonathan Taylor is making a case as like a guy that defenses have to be like, okay, like we have to game plan against this guy. So I do think Titans run defense, as the numbers show a little bit here, is a little underrated. I don't expect either defense to really make too big of an impact on the opposing rushers here.
Jonathan Taylor's is a rib injury, as we talked about earlier in the season. Biases aside, rib injuries are hard to play through.
It depends how severe it is, though, right? Like,
I mean,
it's not like we know that's a cartilage injury or anything like that made him miss time during a game.
I'm just saying what the report says, and it says he has a rib injury. That's all it's saying. So I think, like, as we talked about earlier on in the show, when it wasn't against your beloved Indiana here.
But it was a guy that I liked. It was a guy in Henderson that I've vouched for all season when we talked about rib injuries.
Right, but like that's kind of the point. Case here, like Gronk had a rib injury, now he's been out for a month.
But he broke them.
We don't, but no one's saying what he did, and we don't know, like, if a rib's got like a hairline fracture in it, you play through it, but you get hit once and you're out for season. Like, you have broken ribs now. Like, you just don't know because they aren't saying anything. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying you sit Jonathan Taylor and Jonathan Taylor's trash. I'm saying he has a rib injury. Like, just watch it tonight. That's all I'm saying. And you got all defensive.
I just think the assumption that it's like something big might be a little bold for like him being listed as limited in a Wednesday practice.
I'm not saying he's gonna do anything terrible. I'm just saying.
No, I'm not saying that. I just said I don't think it's going to affect him.
I mean, hey, I never want to wish ill on anyone. So good luck, Jonathan Taylor, fighting through this broken rib.
Broken rib. You heard it here first. Titans are allowing the most fantasy points to opposing wide receiver.
Oh, they're terrible against the pass.
Is Pittman, we've kind of talked about before, is a really hard person to gauge. Is he a weekly reliable fantasy wide receiver? Are you starting him this week? Are you feeling comfortable with him as your wide receiver too, or like your flex week in and week out?
Am I comfortable? No, but I think it all depends on if TY plays. If TY plays, definitely not a week in, week out starter for me. But I mean, kind of gotta like give the guy some credit. He's only had 2 weeks below 10 points in full point PPR. I like it, especially against the Titans this week. I think you play him, but as far as week in and week out, Pittman has not earned my respect. Like, as far as someone who is like, he's not matchup proof, and especially with T.Y. Hilton coming back. Like, I don't think you can like realistically look at him and be like, yeah, this guy is just gonna be the best player out there. Granted, he had over 66% of their offense's total pass yards last game. But if you think that's like something that's going to continue, then like all the power to you for whatever fantasy world you're living in. But I think his numbers decline as soon as T.Y. Hilton comes back.
Maybe that's your wildest fantasy. And we obviously are completely in favor of you experiencing your wildest fantasy, which we hope is this show. But if it is Michael Pittman putting up 66% of Indy's total passing yards, that's a very specific one. But we're, again, all the power to you, which is what you said.
He's not even the leading receiver in the red zone, which is kind of like another reason I'm not high on him. Zach Pascal has 9 and Pittman has 6.
Catches or targets?
The targets.
Cool.
I don't know about catches. Zach Pascal obviously has not capitalized on many. He has 3 touchdowns on the year, so clearly not cashing in.
I agree with you as I like your complete Pittman take. I think I have pretty much the same opinion. I think TY comes in and changes a lot of things, and I would rather not have to be like, oh, didn't see that coming and put Pittman in my starting lineup. I would rather see how it plays out than have to like be reactive to it and say, oh, didn't expect TY to make an impact, even though he's been the number one ever since he's been in Indy.
TY Owen.
And this Colts team, like, I don't think they're a team that necessarily wants to have a clear number one if in a weird way. Like, I think they like spreading the ball around, I think is more what I'm trying to say here. So, and we've seen that. Like, the most catches Pittman got 8 catches against the Rams, but of late he had, even with a 20-point week, he only had 4 catches last week. And he's cashing in on it with a lot of big plays. But you'd like to, I personally, as like a big floor guy and target guy and just volume guy, would like to see a little bit more of that volume to trust him every week in my lineup.
Right. Not someone I'm trusting, especially if TY is coming back. But If you're not in a position to be picky about who you start, there are worse people than Pittman.
Agreed. Moving on to the Rams at Houston. This one can get ugly, but
Rams.
as a positive for Houston, it's Tyrod returning to practice. Possible that he can play in this game. Very possible that he can play in this game.
He was projected for points. He fully returned to practice, no limitations yesterday. So if we're going to be optimistic about someone who is either limited or not participating in a Wednesday practice, I think we have to be just as optimistic as a guy who is fully participating.
So there he goes. I think that might have been karma, folks.
That was karma. He is a lover. Chris Conley.
Yeah, I mean, I'm feel fine with Tyrod coming back. Like, I think that's pretty much the expectation. And I don't know if that matters as much for Tyrod as it does for Brandon Cooks. And I think both of us share the position. I'm not as high on Brandon Cooks as you are. I think we covered that, but I think it definitely excites me for the value of Brandon Cooks going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tyrod is the guy I'm more excited about. At this point, we kind of know what Cooks is. He's their number one guy. He is just a guy who, Chamber of Secrets cursed Toady. I don't know.
Cody doesn't keep secrets.
Yeah, I'm really honest. So if you haven't noticed, I think Tyrod actually gets more of the news here than anyone. Week 1, Tyrod put up 23.6, and then in his incomplete game against Cleveland, he had 16.5. I'm pretty sure he got injured in the first half, which put him on pace to put up 32 plus 33, which is better than most, if not all, the other quarterbacks that Cleveland has played. So he seems to be a nice option back there on a team that has no weapons, which is insane to me. So I like Tyrod more as like a streamer option against some teams, not against the Rams in particular. Rams are pretty good against the pass this year. But, weeks coming up, I mean, they're playing Miami next week and they get a bye. And then they get Jets week 12. They get Jacksonville week 15. So plug and play a couple of these weeks. Tyrod is a very capable quarterback depending on your QB situation.
For sure. I love that. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know about those numbers, so that's very helpful, I think, for everybody out there. And for the Rams side, I mean,
I think you start everyone. I don't.
Yeah, that's really about it. And just quick, again, we talked about this a little bit on Tuesday, but like Robert Woods, shout out for him. Like everybody being like really down on Robert Woods, having a very like solid year. So if I need a wide receiver too, or like a flex that you just need to have like be safe for you week in and week out, I think Robert Woods has been that so far. I think he's wide receiver 19, I want to say. That might be in half, so it might be a little bit different. No, he's wide receiver 19 in full, averaging 14.2. But I think that like just because of how good Cooper Kupp's been this year, people are kind of putting lower value on Robert Woods than the production he's putting up.
I mean, yeah, but Robert Woods was drafted above Cooper Kupp. Robert Woods was the expected guy for them. Robert Woods this, Robert Woods that. Like Robert Woods was supposed to be the number one guy for them. And to put up 100 less fantasy points through a week than Cooper Kupp is a disappointing number. If you were like so down on Cooper Kupp, which I don't know why you would be. Cooper Kupp's a great guy. But I mean,
not according to Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Matthew Stafford called him a douchebag during the game because he gave away his 300th career passing touchdown ball. I think he tossed it somewhere.
I mean, Tom Brady got his 600th career passing touchdown ball given away, and he buys the guy Bitcoin and some jerseys. So I think he just shows true colors out of Matt Stafford over here. That's why I didn't draft him. Can't support a guy like that. But yeah, I think Robert Woods is a fine number 2 option for your team. I'm pretty sure he has one game below 10 points. So I think you're fine taking Robert Woods as a number 2. Again, start him.
Start them all.
Literally start them all.
Going to Cleveland. Pittsburgh at Cleveland. Cleveland 3.5-point favorites here. Baker, I think the expectation again, he's going to start. He said the week off was actually very big help for him. We'll see. Also, the Browns are welcoming back Nick Chubb.
Right.
My big question in that is D'Ernest Johnson, who just had a mega week without Chubb and Hunt there. He had 146 yards on the ground, put up 24, I believe, fantasy points in full-point PPR. Does he have a role in this offense? And do you play him this week?
I think he's going to play the Kareem Hunt role. I think he's going to play the Nick Chubb role, and Nick Chubb will play the Kareem Hunt role.
That's an interesting take.
Garrett Johnson. Well, Nick Chubb's coming back from injury. I think they're gonna let him go out there and show hey, coach, I'm good to go. But I think they're gonna kind of rest him a little bit. Pittsburgh is a really tough run defense. They're top 10 in terms of fantasy points allowed to the running back. So I think D'Ernest Johnson just gets a little bit more love anyway, just in the passing game, which Pittsburgh is 29th in the league against. It's a better pass, and so I think that's why he is going to put up more points, probably. But I think Chubb's going to have a nice bounce, a nice game to come back from injury on. After he missed 2 weeks, I think production is welcoming to see. But I think D'Ernest Johnson is going to, at minimum, be a flex. At best, I don't think he's going to put up the RB1 number he did last week with 25 points. But I could see him getting 15 points, I could see him falling into the end zone on a little pass play. So that's why I like him. And especially everyone else is just banged up. I mean, Chubb's banged up, Baker's banged up, Jarvis is banged up, Odell's banged up, DJ's banged up, Kareem Hunt's on IR. Just everyone's hurt. I think giving it to the healthy guy is a smart thing. And from what I've seen, Browns are relatively smart. So,
yeah, I like Chubb in this game. I mean, Pittsburgh defense has been good fantasy-wise. They've also been decent as far as yards per game go. They've been a little bit worse than they normally are. I think the expectation in Pittsburgh has just always been they stop the run really well. They're 12th in the NFL right now, which is good, but not as good as Pittsburgh normally is, where they're always in the top 5. I think this Cleveland offensive line we talk about a lot. You said they might be the best in football, and I tend to agree with you. They're one of the best in football for sure. Chubb was, I think, close to playing on last Thursday. I think if it was a Sunday game, it would have been a lot closer. So, right. What was that?
Yeah, it was a Thursday game.
Yeah, so I think that Chubb should be fully good to go. I expect it to be a good game from him. I think D'Ernest Johnson is going to have a role.
I mean, have we ever seen Cleveland just when everyone's healthy, or not everyone, but when 2 backs are healthy, not play both backs?
So the only thing that makes me think, and D'Ernest Johnson had a really good week last week, so I don't think, I think D'Ernest Johnson will have a role. I just don't know. I mean, I guess that we won't know, but they did go with one running back last week. I just don't know. Would you rather start Randall Cobb or D'Ernest Johnson?
Johnson.
Okay. I would probably lean Johnson, but I wouldn't the closeness that I consider in that is worrying enough for me, where if I could, I would love to wait a week
Right.
and see. I get that that might not be the situation for some people, and I feel okay having him as a flex, but I just think there might be a better option for this week. And if you can find somebody who's a little bit more safe, a little bit more secure, I would try to take advantage of that if you could, just because I think he has a role. We just haven't seen this really. So I would like to kind of like Pittman and Ty. I would kind of like to see it, see how it plays out. Definitely keep him on your roster, but I would just
I,
try to find another option if you could.
I'm, I mean, last week, Demetric Felton got 22 snaps in. So he got 30% of the plays on offense. So, I mean, yeah, it's not quite the split of, 40-50, 30-50, 40-40, 50-50, whatever, that Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb share throughout the season. But I think that even since last week when both their big name guys are out, he got 69% of the snaps, but Demetric Felton's in there too. So I definitely think Nick Chubb is going to be a part of it. And but I also think Jarrett Johnson is also going to have a big part of it just because Demetric Felton is not Jarrett Johnson. And I think just the fact that he showed everyone last week, hey, I am maybe even if it's not him, it's just that O line is just so good, which I kind of think it is just watching them. Hey, I know how to utilize my opportunity to the fullest extent here. Give me the ball. I think the Browns do it. Kyle Stefanski is a good coach, so
Yeah, I think that I have no doubt that Darren Johnson will be on the field. More my concern is we saw Demetric Felton on the field,
right.
but he only got 5 touches. So are they going to get him involved enough to get true fantasy production? And not only true fantasy production, but if you're starting a guy like that, that we're putting in the same conversation, or I guess I'm more putting in the same conversation as Randall Cobb. I think Randall Cobb has a chance to go off. I think it's a slim chance, but I think he has a chance. And you want there to be an upside. And I'm more uncertain than necessarily pessimistic. I just don't know.
Right. I mean, Darren Johnson, Nick Chubb are not the pass catching backs for the Browns. So it does worry me a little bit just because Demetric Felton out targets both of them. I think combined, Demetric Felton has 12 targets on the season by himself. Nick Chubb has 5, and James Johnson has 3. So they're missing the pass catcher. So I do think Felton could slip his way in there. But at the same time, Nick Chubb and Darius Johnson are not brick hands out here.
They can both catch, yeah.
Nick Chubb has yet to miss a ball thrown his way, and Darius Johnson, I believe, hasn't missed a ball either. Giving an opportunity, these guys can't catch, so I'm not worried about the pass catching downside in which they've shown. But that was when you have Kareem Hunt out there too, so I'm not worried about it. I also I like a running back over a wide receiver, but for Randall Cobb, I mean, the starting guy in a Thursday night game is also a little bit more enticing than Dearness Johnson. So for that, it's a close one.
Agreed. We got to move on, try to cruise through these last 3 games that we're going to talk about today. Philly at Detroit. I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to disappear for 5 seconds, but I will be back. I think the biggest thing from this game is Kenneth Gainwell going to start in place of Miles Sanders. What are your expectations for Kenneth Gainwell?
I think Kenneth Gainwell is going to have a fine game. Detroit is pretty bad against the the run. Sorry, they're 29th in the league so far against tight or running backs. And I mean, they don't really have anyone else to throw to or give it to. I mean, it's Devonte Smith, Kenneth Gainwell, and Dallas Goedert. So I feel comfortable starting him. I feel more comfortable starting Kenneth Gainwell than I do Michael Carter, if that puts it like anywhere in perspective. So it's like I'd start him over the Jets guys, but not super sure about who else I'd like pick over him. Just I don't know. It's you have Jalen Hurts to help you though, so like I think he's gonna have a fine game.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely feel, I think, as good about Gainwell as any of those fill-in running backs, whether it be Khalil Herbert, Daryl Williams. Like, I probably feel better about Gainwell than those guys for this week, obviously, at least. Just because we've seen some productivity and we've seen some explosiveness and upside. Not that we haven't seen that from Herbert, but I think this offense is also a little bit better than the Bears offense. It's hard to kind of be on that level. So, and you get a matchup like Detroit, which Henderson didn't really take advantage of last week, but I think in most cases has been a not hard defense to run on. So
I mean, they're getting 120 yards on the ground a game and 29th in terms of fantasy points given to the running back. So Detroit is a good matchup, especially when, I mean, Jalen Hurts, threat to run it. So you have to kind of respect the quarterback. Devonte Smith is going to play more than likely. So you have a target deep, and you got Dallas Goedert, who I think is in for a great game this game. To be honest, I think it's a Dallas Goedert game. So
I love Goddard. I think we're both pretty high on Goddard since the Zach Ertz deal went.
Yeah.
I think he is definitely a guy that I just love going forward. Last quick thing about this game, Devonte Smith, are you buying or selling on, or maybe like holding, I don't know, buying or selling on Devonte Smith? He's wide receiver 37, averaging 11.2 points per game, but like just haven't seen, I think, the connection that we've expected to see. I think there's a lot of disappointment in the Devonte Smith camp. And he hasn't been like awful. I mean, he just has been kind of disappointing.
I mean, he hasn't been what I thought he was going to be. He also doesn't have the red zone looks that I was also expecting. But it seems to be like when they get in close, they like to run it
Or throw to the tight end.
Yeah, I mean, Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert both have 5 targets on the year now that Ertz is gone. I don't think Goddard eats up all 5, but also Greg Ward, who, like, props if he's on your team, but he has the most targets in the red zone for Eagles wide receiver with 4.
Is that a speculative ad?
No, not even close.
Okay.
He hasn't seen one since week 4. But Devonte Smith, I think like touchdowns have to come eventually, right? I mean, I don't think he finishes the year with 1 touchdown. I think especially for the lack of weapons on their team and like the fact that he is a good wide receiver out there, I think he has to score. I'd hold. I don't know what I would be able to like him for, and like I'm not gonna get like, all hurt and stuff when he goes off for, another 20-point game or whatever, or get a couple of touchdowns for me. I mean, he's put up 19, 14, and 11 with no touchdown. So I mean, like, he's put up some decent numbers. And if he puts a touchdown on there, that's 25, 20, and 17. Like, I think he has the potential to put up some good games, especially if the balls start dropping for him and he can capitalize on some.
Yeah, all but 1 game with 6 or more targets. I think it's kind of like Keenan Allen light, where he hasn't had the touchdown production, and I think we expect that to come. I don't expect it to come as much as I expect it to come for Keenan Allen. So that's kind of why I would say like it depends what you can get for him, but I don't think you're gonna like you said, I don't really think there's anything.
Right. You're not going to get someone who has Devonte Smith's upside for like a straight up trade. Like you're not going to do it, and I don't know. So I think you just hold him, let him go off for a couple weeks, get a couple touchdowns.
Eagles 3.5. Are you taking it, or do you think Detroit pulls an upset here?
I'll take that. Eagles -3.5. I'd be more comfortable with -2.5. I think it's
Might have to just tease it down. Yeah.
yeah.
San Francisco at Chicago is the
Yep.
next game. Big thing is probably the backfield of Chicago at this point. Khalil Herbert has been very effective so far. He had 100 rush yards against Tampa Bay last week. They were down like 21-0, maybe as soon as the coin toss ended. But 100 yards, 100 yards, especially from your third string running back coming into the year. Damien Williams got taken off the COVID list on Saturday before the Sunday game. Do you think this is Khalil Herbert's job coming into the week? We just saw Jonathan Taylor go off for 100 yards against San Francisco last week, albeit tsunami. But do you think, one, this is Herbert's job? Do you think Damien Williams involves himself? And two, do you think he has a good game?
I said Herbert's looks nice for this game. San Francisco is middle of the road against the run. They're 16th, so it could go either way. But I think Herbert has the job just because he got upgraded on the depth chart. We don't know how much like COVID took out of Damien Williams either, like how he's feeling on it. So we don't know that for sure. But I like the running backs for the Bears more than like the pass catchers, just because they don't have to rely on the quarterback the ball. They can just take it themselves. So I really like Herbert this game. I'd start him over, over most. Michael Carter, I'd start him over. And then obviously any backup in the league, I'd choose Herbert over them. I don't think Williams takes a big chunk of the load, but
Herbert Carter is a really good question for me. I think that it's going to be a little split, but I also think because of how they've thrown the ball so far, they're going to rely so heavily on the running backs that it won't matter too much for Herbert. I'm not starting Damien Williams. I don't trust him to be the lead guy. Even if he does get like 10 carries, I think Herbert gets like 18 or something like that. So I would rather have Herbert in that scenario. As for San Francisco, I think Elijah Mitchell has been like a pretty big name. Actually, I want to speculate here. If Debo is out, he hasn't practiced this week. Are you trusting one of the biggest disappointments in fantasy this year in Brandon Ayuk?
So I actually wrote down pre-show before me and you. I said an Ayuk rebound game, exclamation point, followed by a question mark, followed by a frowny face. So
frowny you face. Sound very conflicted.
I am. So exclamation point if Deebo Samuel is out. Question mark if Deebo Samuel is in. And sad face because it's Brandon Ayuk. Has been close to, if not the biggest disappointment in terms of a healthy player so far this year. Like,
agree.
It's not much of a discussion there to be had.
Him and Allen Robinson, maybe Robbie Anderson in that mix as well.
I mean, it's not a discussion for me. It's because I think the quarterback play has been far superior, granted what it is for the San Francisco 49ers than it has been for the Bears since week 1.5. Yeah, I'm not loving the Brandon Ayuk idea, but the fact they're playing Chicago, who is very, very porous against the pass in terms of points to wide receivers. Samuel is out. I think Ayuk gets his day, and it's gonna be fun, like to be like, oh yes, finally, he's paid off. All this time I've kept him on my bench, but I don't think enough people. I mean, I guess enough people have him. Like 48% of the teams have him still on their team. So, I mean, if you have him on your roster, congratulations. This could be the one game this year in which you're like, I knew it. I knew he just needed his day. But
The problem for me is like,
it's only if Debo's out though.
has he put up enough that even with Debo out, you're like, I'm gonna start Brandon Ayuk? Like that's super risky to go out and say Brandon Ayuk has had one good fantasy week. Are you going to put him in your lineup?
So I mean, Brandon Ayuk, granted they all came in one game, but he has three red zone targets. If Debo's out, then Debo only has 9. Mohamed Sanu has 2. As in terms of team targets, it's not looking good. He has 16 targets on the year. But again, if Debo Samuel's out, like Debo only has 2 games of less than double-digit looks, so like they have to go somewhere. And I think like it's an Ayuk day. If Samuel's out, if Samuel's not out, I'm not thinking about starting Ayuk in the slightest.
So are you starting Ayuk if Samuel's out over? I'm trying to think of some other options here. You're leaning towards starting him. I probably would not.
So it's a 1:00 game. It's kind of risky, just because you don't know who's. I mean, you got some decent games in the 4:00 slate, but also other people playing at the same time as him. I kind of like him if Debo Samuel's out. I think like I said earlier, I think this is the game in which you have to perform.
If it's not now, then when?
Exactly. I can't remember who I said that about earlier.
I think it was.
I'm trying to remember. It's blew.
Yeah, we'll worry about that another time.
Another day conversation.
Going into our last game of the day, Carolina at Atlanta, with the other disappointing wide receiver that we mentioned in Robbie Anderson. I think Robbie Anderson, like this could be a game for him because early in the season, it wasn't necessarily that he was doing bad, but it was more he wasn't getting the volume of last year. It just didn't look like the same role for Robbie Anderson.
Right.
Where in recent weeks, he's been dropping everything, but he's been getting, since week 4, he's had 11 targets, 7 targets, 11 targets, 9 targets. Like, if he can remember how to catch the ball, one of these games he's going to go off. And Atlanta, I think, is as good of a chance as any for it to be that week.
Right. I mean, I'm with you. I like DJ Moore. I like Robbie Anderson this game. I like Robbie Anderson over Brandon Ayuk.
I agree.
I just think like the pure number that Robbie Anderson has received this year is great. It's welcoming. But the fact that he hasn't been able to capitalize on it by catching the ball is super frustrating, especially as a Robbie Anderson player. I like Robbie Anderson as a player. And it's just kind of sad to like watch him blow away some opportunities to get you, a point or two here, a point or two there. And it is saddening to like watch and be like, oh no, we're not having Robbie Anderson. But I think this is a good game to do it. You're playing Atlanta. I could see a double-digit week for Robbie.
I think it's going to be good. Like, I don't I think it's hard to feel great about starting either
Right.
guy, but I would much rather start Robbie Anderson if I had to. And I say it more so because I get that he's still rostered in 68% of leagues,
Right.
but I've seen him available in two 12-team leagues already this uh, this week. So like, if you can pick him up, I think he's worth as much as anybody else that you could have. I would think so.
And
Especially if he has like a big game, it's Robbie Anderson. So if he has a good game, I think people are going to see those target numbers and it's going to mean a little bit more. And the hype might be, oh, Robbie Anderson. He's got a shot to be good again. So
I'm with you.
he is definitely someone to look at. Panthers defense has fallen off a bit. They're still second versus the pass this year, but they're 13th versus the run. They had crazy numbers in the beginning of the year, so I think those are kind of like weighing a little bit heavier into these into like their season long numbers. I think, as we mentioned, it's a little bit more of a get right game for the Panthers offense. Atlanta D being in the middle of the pack. DJ Moore, I think, has a huge game.
Right.
And I don't think the Panthers defense is going to be like that great to stop Atlanta from doing too much. I think it's going to be like a kind of decent game from both.
So, I mean, I like Ridley as a number 2 or a flex.
I see this being a Cordero, sorry.
I don't know. Carolina is like first against, as far as points to the running back this year. They are first. I could see it being a better football game for Cordell Patterson and a real fantasy numbers game goes, which is a little sad because I really enjoy watching Cordell Patterson just light up. He is 8th and for the running backs so far this year. So I still think it's going to be a good game, but I think Ridley bounces into a double-digit week. I think Kyle Pitts, back from that great just monster game he had last week, comes back to it. But I like Cordell Patterson in terms of the running back situation for Atlanta. I like him over Mike Davis for sure.
Yeah, Mike Davis really taking a fall off of where he was taken. It's crazy because coming into the year, I remember saying, who else? And then Cordell Patterson is who else.
Cordell, great running back in the league over Joe Mixon, over Daryl Henderson, just out there tearing it up.
It's funny that you mentioned two guys that were on my team. It's funny. I just imagine that's by chance, though. Start one, second take extra. I would say second take extra probably ranked number 1 on the fan power rankings.
I said that whenever we were asked last time. I said second take extra is my number 1 fan. Love it. Love this guy. Always asking questions, hard questions too, not just easy.
Yeah, it's consensus. So congrats to the second take extra. You could probably we don't have a deliverable or a physical
Trophy
thing that you could hang up for that, to know that you are the number 1 fan of us, but just keep that in your head.
Right.
Nice memento.
If you get a tattoo that says number 1 fan, I will personally hand deliver you a trophy.
I think that's probably the least you could do. Start one, Herbert, Elijah Mitchell, or Gibson.
Herbert.
Really?
Gibson is playing a tough team. Washington is playing the Broncos. I think Broncos, despite their troubles, the fact that Antonio Gibson still has that whatever leg injury, the stress fracture or whatever, not great. And Elijah Mitchell, Niners are playing the Bears, so I kind of like that one, but I just think that I just like the opposite side. I just think Herbert is going to have a better game than Mitchell.
I would go. My mind was immediately Elijah Mitchell or Gibson. So we are on two different sides of the coin on this one. I would probably go Elijah Mitchell, and if Debo's out, like who else are there? Who's really like a trusted weapon on that offense? And I think it's hard to gain Shanahan's trust, as has been seen. So Elijah Mitchell seems to be one of the only guys out there that has done that. So he would be my choice there. Start one: Gallup, Corey Davis, OBJ. That's difficult.
OBJ is playing a rivalry game against the Steelers, so he's automatically out for me.
We talked about Steelers' pass defense being bad, though.
Right, but I think rivalry games just like they bring out just unreal. It's a real thing. Like watching the teams play, they just like
divisional games tend to be closer, even if the teams aren't that close talent-wise. I agree.
So for me, I like Corey Davis. I think with the backup quarterback situation here, probably going to target the number one guy just repeatedly. And I think Gallup just has too many options out there. Zeke, Pollard. Dak just to run it by himself. Then CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper.
Hopefully Dak.
Yeah, I think Dak's playing. I didn't see anything about it.
But I think it's close between Gallup and Corey Davis. I would go Corey Davis, though.
You're much higher on the Dallas is playing my Vikings.
I think that's why. It's just going to be like a shootout.
I think Dallas takes the game. Dallas is the more dominant of the two teams. I think they just have the QB situation is way better in Dallas and Minnesota, and I think the fact that that Dallas O-line anyone can run behind just makes it more enticing for me. So
again, just shots at my running backs, but
it's not a shot. If you're gonna take
anyone can run behind it.
Anyone,
that's not supposed to be a shot.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can they not? Have they?
I don't know.
Has either of them not put up a double-digit this week?
I think they're both very talented players. Do I win? I have Stafford, Aaron Jones, James Robinson, Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, DJ Moore, Pitts, Bengals D, and Cincinnati kicker. I hope so. I do see the opposing team. The Kirk Cousins, Jonathan Taylor, Gaskin, D-Hop, Keenan Allen, Ertz, Mike Williams, Chargers defense, and Greg Joseph. I think so.
Maybe I might change your kicker a little bit. You guys are playing the Jets. I think Jets aren't going to stop the Bengals from scoring all that often, so I don't think the field goals are going to be a real option there. But maybe that's the only critique I can think of. I like your team. I like your chance.
Yeah, I do like your chances as well. Start one: Devonte Smith, Damien Harris, Javonte, Zach Moss. Damien Harris. I think he's just the best player in that. I don't know about best talent-wise player, but the best fantasy player this season in that list.
Patriots are playing the Chargers, so that's why I'm not jumping out of my seat saying Damien Harris. I like Devonte Smith more. I don't like Zach Moss or Javonte.
Chargers have been the worst against the run this year. 162 yards per game, which is all 17 yards more than Houston at 31.
Right. I don't love it though.
I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, great for Chargers. Glad that
I don't think it is.
Glad Joey Bosa can stop the pass. Now he has to work on. He's got his work cut out for him. I like Smith a little bit more here. I don't see Harris just I think the fact that he has had a lot of the touches, by himself so far this year, I don't think that always continues. That's what I'm just worried about, being the number one guy in New England as a runner not mean much to Bill Belichick. That's just kind of why I'm more hesitant. I don't hate it if you start him. I just don't. I'm not loving it.
DJ Moore, Javonte, Daryl Williams, or Waddle start one. DJ Moore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the easier ones for us. Do I do this? I get Godwin and Fant and give up Dalton Schultz and DJ Moore. I would not. I am a little bit worried about Dalton Schultz. If Gallup come back, I did say that on the show earlier this week. I don't know how season long Godwin's value is, just because when AB comes back, I trust that a little bit less. I don't think Fant is that big of an upgrade at tight end, and DJ Moore is just somebody that I've kind of been all in on of late. I would say not even of late, but since the season started, I think that he's a wide receiver one.
Right. I mean, I just think that you could probably get more if you're going to get rid of DJ Moore for sure than Fant and Goodwin. I mean, Godwin over here, he has one less target. Godwin. I'm changing up his name. I'll say it.
Just keeping the people on their toes.
Right. I mean, he has one less target than Mike Evans, which is kind of crazy to me when I think about the team. But you have to remember, Gronk was out for a while, but Antonio Brown is about to be out for a little while too. And he also leads the team in red zone targets. I don't know if that continues though. I guess my worry is that regression comes and hits Godwin more than it's going to hit DJ Moore when CMC comes back. That's my only concern. That's why I'd be more hesitant to trade.
Yeah, and I think DJ Moore, although he has more than one touchdown on the year, is a guy where I think touchdowns are still going to come for him. I think touchdown regression is going to play in his favor. Where Godwin, it's just more pieces around there that I'm worried about, especially in the red zone. I get that Godwin has been a popular red zone target, but they have a lot of really good red zone targets. And now with Gronk coming back too, I just think there's so many options there that limits him into being a mid wide receiver 2 on the year, where I think DJ Moore is, to me, a mid wide receiver 1.
Yeah.
And I would rather have that than a mid tight end 1 versus a low to mid tight end 1. I just don't think the Fant Schultz offsets the Godwin DJ Moore. This one kind of plays into that. Do I panic on DJ Moore because of Sam Darnold? We talked about this a little bit, I think, on Monday. I would not panic. I think we're both kind of in the same boat that when CMC comes back, we expect very good things from DJ Moore. And in the meantime, I think things are going to get better for this Carolina offense.
Right, I'm with you. Don't panic. When CMC comes back, ship will kind of right itself a little bit.
I can start Cincinnati kicker, Titans kicker, Seahawks kicker, Colts kicker, Browns kicker, Steelers kicker. A lot of kickers.
I might go Browns or Steelers just because I think it's going to be a nitty-gritty game. Kind of what I'm hoping for as a newly acquired Browns fan on the year. I'm kind of hoping it's more of a shooter or more of a grind out sort of game. Browns defense has been
Urban Meyer.
Yeah, I mean,
Urban Meyer loves just to grind it out. Grind it out kind of win. Or loss. Depending on how you look at it, I suppose. I would go Titans Colts. One of those guys I kind of like. I've kind of talked about. Colts have been better in the red zone of late, so I would look at. There's a very good website I would just give a shout out to called teamrankings.com that has a lot of stats, and one of those stats is touchdown percentage in the red zone, and that's where I often find who I'm going to start on my kickers based off of that. And then there's Also stats in there for field goals attempted, opposing team field goals attempted, stuff like that. Teamrankings.com, very useful website, especially when it comes to your kicker decisions. I can try to get DK for Daryl Williams and DJ Moore.
I don't hate it.
I like DJ Moore more than DK, but I don't blame
Yeah. It's a
you.
conversation.
Like, I don't think that's a bad. If you really are worried about the DJ Moore situation, I'm fine with you doing that. Agreed? I think. Trying to just see if I missed anything here.
Good.
Is Wentz in this combo? If this combo is about MVP, then Wentz, I think, deserves to be in the combo.
All right.
That's what we will leave today on. So if we want to continue our conversation about MVP tomorrow, where we will also have a conversation about the rest of the Week 8 games, Carson Wentz might be in that combo. We did talk about him today, kind of. We talked about Colts today, but might have to bring him up as just if the MVP conversation arises. But we'll be back, talk all the games that we did not talk about today, give our bold predictions. I don't even remember our bold predictions for last week. See if we got any right.
Mm-hmm.
And Second Take Extra has one more question, so we will answer that, and then we will be good for today. Will Aaron Jones outscore Ertz and D-Hop? I say yes.
Close.
I do see it being a big Aaron Jones game.
It's going to be close. D-Hop's banged up, so sure.
Yeah. All right. We will see y'all tomorrow.
And
enjoy the game.
enjoy them.